this remarkable medium of technology flowing your way, and I really hope it'll make a difference.
I'm going to try and turn on a couple of lights and see if the lighting is any better. How's that? Any good?
Well, I haven't seen you yet. I can see lots of other people.
I'm at the top.
I'm sort of looking. Yeah.
Oh dear. What have I got to do to bring me? Can anybody else see me?
Yeah, we can all see you. I'm not sure what you need to do, but I think
Don't worry.
I can see you, Ted, and I think everyone else probably can as well.
Oh, yeah, well, no problem.
That's put it on speaker amazing. Only. Good afternoon, Nick. I do apologise for the delay.
Anyway, Ted, from
no
us
problem.
all,
it's lovely to see you all.
From us all, congratulations on writing your book, which is a great achievement, and I've read it. I've read it really thoroughly, and you'll be pleased to hear that. But what interests me to kick off is really, Ted, what inspired you to write this book, which is a very full account of your life and cricket.
Now, can you hear me, everybody? That's the point.
Yeah, I can.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so I can wax large and eloquent. What inspired me to finally write the book? I had a lot of family say, come on, you've got to do it. The thing that really tipped it for me was because Alan Lee biography of whatever it was 20, 30 years ago, which was unauthorized. He rang me, said, oh, Ted, I've got it was just when I'd sort of been sacked from the chairman of the England committee job. Are you there?
Yep.
Yep. Something just come up, Peter, but never mind. And he said, I have a publisher. I've got a contract to write your story. When can I come and see you? And I said, well, hang on a minute. I'm not sure about that. I don't think this is the right time. And then he did after 24 hours. I said, no, I want to see you. He said, well, I'm going to write it anyway. I said, well, that's your business. It's not mine. And please don't bother me anymore, which he didn't. But he had the nerve and the gall, even on the flyleaf of the book, to thank all the other people who had helped him, and of course Ted himself. And throughout the book, it was I said to Ted, and he said this to me, and there were some awful errors and really miserable put-ons, which were unnecessary, inaccurate, and really made me unhappy. Although it was later that I found out how inaccurate it was, because at the time I just thought, well, I'm not going to read it. The family read it, and they said, oh, it's not bad, it's quite good. I said, well, so did me, but I'm going to read it.
Yeah.
Which I never did for 20 years. And then, of all people, the MCC monthly magazine produced a little piece about cricket and gamblers. And it had 3 paragraphs in there about me, which were just so scurrilous and so completely inaccurate that I thought, where the hell did they get that from? I went to the Alan Lee book and I found it, 2 paragraphs, bingo. About, when I came back from my very unsuccessful tour in 58, 59, which I managed to rescue at the last minute in New Zealand. When I came back, I went back to work for C.E. Heath insurance brokers, some of the biggest, most respected brokers in London. And I was in an entry of 4 people, and we all worked together, and I'd taken my exams, and I'd passed those. I was ready to go on and get my letters after my name. And Mr. Lee said that given job, not with any idea of giving me any work to do, but by dint of my name and reputation. Well, of course, actually, I didn't have any name or reputation then. My reputation was minimal. And so it was so cobbled together and so unpleasant.
I'm sorry about that. But this
inspired me to sort of put the record right. Yes. Nobody can argue. Now this is me talking, and so far people seem to have enjoyed it.
Oh, they have, and they will do. That's for sure. Now, Ted, just before you came on, we had quite fun here with a little clip from that famous Test match, which of course you'll remember terribly well, in 1963 at Lord's during that well-known famous West Indies series. And we all loved watching Hall and Griffiths and Sobers and all the players. And the thing I've been longing to ask you, if you don't mind, for years and years and years, is when you strode out to bat on that Friday, I think it was the Friday, did you sort of have in mind to really take on the might of the pace bowling of Hall and Griffiths, or did it just sort of happen, as it were, by mistake?
Not by mistake, a bit of half and half.
Yeah.
It wasn't totally out of character with me.
No.
I always batted, once I got settled in the side,
yeah.
I always batted at number 3, and very often, particularly in Australia in 62-3, where dear Jeff Puller, who'd had a wonderful trip to West Indies, he was just, Davidson only had to turn his arm over to knock his middle stump out. So I was always in there, probably in the first or second over. And the one thing I always reckoned about the way I batted was that I was pretty effective against fast bowlers. So it was, but I also thought, it's no good. We're going to be an Aunt Sally here unless we take them on. So it was a bit of both.
It's interesting because, I mean, in that era, and put me right if I'm wrong, but in that era, scoring rates within Test cricket were much lower than they are now, have been since then. So in a way, this explosive innings coming, so far as I remember, pretty soon after both Mickey Stewart and John Edrich had got out pretty early, I think. So this explosive innings, you might say, took quite a lot of people, if not yourself, by surprise.
I think it took Charlie Griffiths by surprise. One minute he was rushing in to bowl and glowering down the wicket. And the next thing, he was sort of slinking slowly back to his mark and wondering where the ball was going to go.
And Ted, what was it? I mean, I know that everyone listening will long to know sort of what it was really like facing the might of Wes Hall and his long run-up, and Charlie Griffith with, let's say, his unusual delivery stride. What was it like for your end? It's not far away. You're not far away from them.
well, I don't think it's any different from, you know, people who had to face Frank Tyson.
Yeah.
In his pomp and all the great real quick bowlers and over time. The thing is, with Wes,
yes,
I always felt there were scoring opportunities. He was used to get a Wes, and therefore anybody swings it tends to pitch it up a bit to allow it to swing. And as long as you're in tune, you get a few scoring opportunities. Charlie was very different. It was very, very difficult.
Yeah.
He had this huge sort of delay. Just thought he ought to be bowling, nothing happened. And then the catapult came in. It's terribly difficult to sort of time your shots. And
yeah. Yeah.
I'll tell you when it did show. I mean, I got in trouble for voicing my view. I'm afraid Charlie's a chucker and all that. And in fact, I did bump into him once at Scarborough that year, and I started to make a conversation. He told me where to go in very short shrift. I wasn't going to argue. He's quite a big, strong man. But I've made it up with him since. I've got photographs of me and Wes and Charlie together. But he was very difficult. Where it did show, I don't know if you remember the Lord's Taverners, brilliant idea. They brought all the world's fast bowlers together for a big dinner. Did you come to that, John?
I missed it, sadly, not being a very fast bowler.
When they made, all the lights went down and produced all these guys.
Yeah.
We were all terrified in different parts of the world.
Yes.
They brought them one by one with a nice little fanfare. And I'll tell you, the hairs stood out on the back of my neck. It was a wonderful occasion. But meanwhile, they had video of them all bowling. Dennis Lilly, Tomo, wow, all fizzing around, whacking his head. And all of them, you know, they all looked similar. But suddenly they had Charlie Griffiths, and it was something like he was playing a different game. Because he came trundling in and suddenly launched the ball, and his follows nearer extra cover than batsman. I mean, you couldn't have a competition with Charlie because he turned left, but the ball had gone down the right. So there we are. It was difficult.
And Ted, just at the end of that wonderful match, I long to feel what the sort of feeling, the tension, the feeling in the dressing room on those little white benches in the England dressing room, with Colin coming back from hospital with his broken arm, and David Allen and Shaq waiting to bat, and Brian Close playing that extraordinary innings. And you're captain, and you're on. How did you keep them all together and sort of sane? Oh,
it was just very, very exciting. I mean, one moment we felt we could win it, next we were going to lose it.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, Frank Worrell, by keeping Wes on and on from the end, I mean, Wes was taking longer and longer and longer to bowl his end. So we were robbed of a bit of time there.
Yeah,
but c'est la vie. That's the way things are.
And Colin, what, sort of arrived back from hospital? Did he mid-afternoon or late afternoon, and got himself ready in case?
Well, I'm afraid a lot of my memory is a blur, I can tell you. I I wouldn't trust a lot of the things I say from 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Yeah, 50 years. It's not exactly pin sharp, as they say.
Well, it was one of the great matches, and I mean, interestingly, it followed a wonderful series when you captained the MCC side to Australia the previous winter, 62, 63, and you had by nowadays standards, quite an unusual sort of management team for your tour of Australia.
Teddy, Talbots are here. Talbots are here. How much longer?
Oh my goodness!
Are we still there?
Will you ask?
Well, you deal with it and bring it to me.
Okay.
I've been waiting for solicitors to come to sign our wills, and they're out of the blue. But Susan did it.
Are you okay?
My children will be very pleased to know that I signed my will.
Oh, well, that is good news. That's a historic moment.
Anyway, where have we got to?
Well, I just drifted back a little bit to the previous winter, 62, 63, when you captained. Yeah, when you captained the side, the MCC to Australia, and the management team was unusual by nowadays standards.
Well, I was actually in the MCC because in those days it was the MCC tour.
Yeah.
MCC took responsibility for the whole tour, and you only became England when you got to play in the test match.
Yeah.
The rest of the time you were playing as MCC. It was
Yeah.
MCC against the against the States, and MCC playing up country. We played so much cricket. We played up country, down country.
Yeah.
It's got to be done with us. It's got to be done with us, darling. And she sent you an email.
What?
She sent you an email, and it's got to be done with us. So
Okay.
Can you rearrange things in any way?
Is it possible to have a 7-minute break while I sign my will?
I'm sure, Nick. Nick, over to you. Over to the management team.
I mean, how could we say no? I guess we'll see you in 7 minutes, Ted.
7 minutes. I shall be back.
You only need 2 witnesses. You've got many today.
Yes. Johnny, shall we continue in these 7 minutes?
Others keep chatting. Yes, I'm sure there'll be lots of people who'd love to come in with thoughts.
Can you tell us, Johnny, about when you first met Ted? You've talked about your hero worship of him as a young man. I mean, when did you meet him in the flesh, and how did you feel, and what happened?
Well, a very good question. I was actually going to come on to that later, but I was the very first time I saw Ted play for real in a big live cricket match was the final of the first knockout of the knockout tournament in 1963 when Sussex played Worcestershire at Lord's and had a great success. And so that would be the first experience I had of seeing Ted play and captaining the side, and also just getting a sort of understanding of his tactical. You know, he was ahead of the game, Ted. If there's time, I'll talk to him about it. On the concept of one day limited over cricket then in 1963. That very first year of the knockout, in actual fact, it wasn't called the Gillette Cup. I don't think it was called Gillette till 64. It was just the knockout tournament. And believe it or not, it was 65 overs each side in that very first year. It was then reduced to 60. But I think Ted did take it to heart and took a real interest in this new tournament, way ahead of many other county captains, and thought it out tactically and was very successful. So, you know, it would lead on to thoughts about, you know, how interested Ted would always be in anything that is new, and he would now, I'm sure, take a great interest in the short form cricket as it emerges, which some of us love and some of us love a little less. But certainly he would have been very interested in it. And that's my first. So Lord's 63 from the nursery end as just about 9 years old, perhaps I was then. And but I mean, I didn't meet Ted Dexter then. I can't quite remember when I first actually really met Ted, possibly about 1971 or 2 when he played some Sunday League matches for Sussex. I played in a practice match in April at the RAF ground at Uxbridge against Middlesex, and found that Ted was playing. And I would have been about 18, possibly only 17. And for some reason, I was in the practice match team, and we played against Middlesex at Uxbridge, and Ted played. Same dressing room. John Snow played. Same dressing room as Snow and Dexter. I mean, I felt that was a huge event for me. And I remember bowling. I can't remember if I got anybody out. I doubt it. I usually didn't. But I did bowl at Mike Smith, that's MJ Smith, and Peter Parfitt in that match. And I don't think I was taken off in disgrace. So I think I must have survived. But that wasn't important. Ted Dexter played, I think, in one of those games, or in that game. So there we are. I might have met him before then, but who knows?
So you don't remember your first conversation with him, for example?
Not really. All I know is that on the whole, it's usually rather a mistake to meet your heroes.
Yes.
You know, they really need to remain heroes, I think. But it's been lovely to meet up with Ted and Susan since, and you know, on MCC stuff and some committee stuff, and you know, Ted, a great ideas man, always terrific ideas man.
What did you admire of his captaincy as a tactician, and did you take anything from that and apply it when you were captain of Sussex?
I suppose it was a bit before my era. I mean, certainly his tactical strength in the one-day game was considerable. And I honestly, I don't know in terms of county championship cricket. And again, if we get that far, I mean, Ted's career as a first-class cricketer by nowadays standards was relatively short. And his county championship cricket, you know, he would have played quite a bit, but not anywhere near the quantity of counterparts today. And I mean, again, I'm guessing a little bit how many years he captained the Sussex side for, maybe 5 or 6 years. He'd be able to tell us. But it was a little bit before my era to be able to say that. But what one got from Ted is this sort of sense of style and panache and zippity-doo-dah, and the fact that he, you know, he flew aeroplanes and liked cars and then drove motorbikes. You know, marvelous. Turn up at Lord's on a motorbike in your leathers. That's terrific stuff, isn't it? Unusual and great.
And he's still got a greyhound, I think. I read earlier, and I think we caught a glimpse of it a few moments ago when his wife Susan came in to he was a man of many sporting interests, wasn't he? Not least the gambling he's already mentioned. He's already mentioned golf, I think. Horse racing was another of his great interests. How typical are, I mean, how many other cricketers do you know? Variety of interests.
Castle in the middle.
How are we going?
That one attached.
Oh, keep going. Somebody keeps unmuting themselves, but keep going.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're right, Nigel. You're so right. Lots of a great variety of interests. Racing, horse racing, greyhounds, golf, which we could come to. I mean, golf was more than just an interest. I mean, really tip-top golfer. And actually, I think it's of some interest as to why Ted gravitated to cricket as his number one thing. I mean, it might well have been golf, I would have thought, possibly. I mean, quite an interesting book. It'd be rather interesting to see what he thinks.
Yeah, and in the chapter of his book about when he was at Cambridge, I hadn't realised this, but he played rugby almost exclusively at first, and had to be persuaded to play cricket. He didn't play for his college until right at the end, and only once. It's quite an amusing account.
Yeah,
his career could have gone in different ways, couldn't he?
Well, I think the thing, yeah, absolutely. I think the thing is that, you know, when you're a gifted sports person, a gifted sportsman, and you know, very well coordinated, and you have presence in whatever you do, be it playing squash or cricket or hockey or rugby or tennis or golf, you're basically good at things. And lots of these tip-top cricketers are good at other sports, and it's not surprising. But I think that Ted has a very sort of fluid, for me, has a very fluid sort of mind, and it comes through the book. It's so interesting that there are other things that interest him as well as sport, and that's you know, I think, and that's fun. Lucky him, fantastic.
Yeah, I think towards the end of the book, he lists a series of things that he'd like to be remembered for, which go well beyond playing. He was quite revolutionary. I think Test match contracts. He did some initial work on.
Yeah.
On that. Technology with information about player statistics and performances. Do you highlight any of those particular achievements that he brought to the game in his career after he'd finished playing? As you say, was pretty short.
I think